Right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our webinar today, focusing on building a master schedule and changing the invitation to advanced placement or AP courses with our friends from the College Board. As you are logging onto the webinar and settling in, if you could please do us a favor and use the chat to introduce yourself. Be sure to include your name, school, your role, and even maybe one hope or question that you have for our panelists today. We want to make sure we get all of your questions answered, of course. While you are introducing yourself on the chat, if you can please make sure that your response is set to everyone and not just the host or the panelists. This way, everyone can see, who is all in the room with us today. We would appreciate that. We're going to get started in just a moment. And again, while you are introducing yourself in the chat, I'm going to go ahead and highlight just a couple of norms for today. Number one, because this is a webinar, we would really appreciate it if you use the Q&A system to ask your questions. Everybody can see the questions that are asked. You can even use the little thumbs up and upvote those questions. If you had something similar, that'll help us kind of prioritize questions as we go through and make sure that we get those burning questions asked. Since we're using the Q&A for that, we want you to use the chat then to really just, like you're doing now, you're introducing yourself, you can share ideas, share comments or thoughts on ideas that you're hearing. You can reply to one another. So again, Q&A is for questions. Chat is just to share ideas and comments. And then we will send out a copy of the slide deck as well as a recording of this. It usually takes me about a day, so you can expect to get an email from me, Ryan. Tomorrow at some point, we'll also include a lot of these recaps and some of our follow-up MASSP publications and newsletters and whatnot. Then just a general reminder, because this is being recorded and you might come back to it tomorrow, next week, next month, next year, just remember that the information really is only accurate up through today, January 22nd, 2026. So you always want to be mindful that you're double checking and that none of that information has changed over the course of that time that it's taken you to come back to this webinar. Looks like we have a handful of people in the chat. I see Todd and Kristen, Kathy, Sarah, Dan, Tricia. Awesome. Thank you. Again, if you are just coming on now, if you can introduce yourself in the chat, something maybe you're hoping to learn from our session today. Otherwise, I am going to go ahead and stop sharing, and I'm going to turn it over to our friends from College Board, Cassie and Dennis, and they're going to introduce some folks from there. So the show is yours.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ryan. We're super grateful to be here today in our partnership with MASSP to be able to provide this content. My name is Cassie Munoz, and I'm the Senior Director of K-12 here for the College Board, and I'm based in the Upper Peninsula. And I'm also joined by my colleague, Dennis.
Hello, everybody. My name is Dennis Bestie, and I serve as the Director of State and District Partnerships here within the state of Michigan. And I'd like to introduce our guests and panelists and experts, honestly, from Troy High School, which is the district which I actually live, so this is really amazing. Principal Remo Ronconi and Assistant Principal Jesse L. Geyer. Jesse and Principal Remo, would you guys mind talking about your experience and introducing yourself a little bit?
Sure.
Yeah,
go
ahead.
Hi, my name's Remo Ronconi. I'm principal here at Troy High School. Both Jesse and I have been in the building here for over 20 years. Mm-hmm. So I feel like we can definitely explain the journey to where we're currently at over the course of this webinar. So we're excited to talk more about, again, all of your questions and maybe more.
Yep. And my name is Jesse Allgaier. I'm an assistant principal, but this is actually my first year as an assistant principal at Troy High. I was a counselor formerly for 21 years at Troy High. So I have some unique experiences coming to the AP role.
All right, wonderful. Thank you. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started here. So jumping right in. So curious to see in the chat here how many of you are responsible for building your master schedule, maybe for the first time, or how many of you have done this before. We know that it is a big undertaking and it takes a special kind of person to maybe find joy in it. But I know some of you are out there. So everyone's coming from a different context. Some of you may have multiple high schools within your districts. Some of you may have teachers who are shared, and of course, space constraints and other things. In this session, we're not going to get deep into the specifics on the building of the schedule itself, but we do want to make you aware of some resources and tools that you can leverage as you go through that process. Whoops. There we go. Okay, so before we do that, want to set the table here and talk a little bit about why we should prioritize AP. Dennis?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, just thinking about what we're doing when we're creating a master schedule, right? We're not just building a schedule per se. What we're doing is providing building blocks for our kids' futures, right? Every class we offer them can serve as a signpost and give them direction or open up new avenues that they never thought of before. And that's what we always try to think of, or that's what we always try to frame it when we think about creating these master schedules and working with other admins or professionals who are doing this, right? Just to have them think about what their experience is, or maybe the experience of someone that they know, right? We always hear about those stories about a student who took class X with Professor Y and it inspired them to go down this pathway, right? And so when we're creating a master schedule, we're setting up these sliding doors for individuals' lives and opening up new opportunities with every course that we offer. And when we talk about those opportunities, next slide. And when we talk about those opportunities, this is something that we can talk about, right? Anecdotally, we all know those stories. We've all heard those stories. Maybe we've seen those stories in action, but we also have data to back up those same stories. Understanding that participation matters, understanding that the master schedules that we create open those doors. And so you can see right here that it's something that we all know. Post-secondary education is important. You can look at the data for higher levels of education equate to lower levels of unemployment. Higher levels of education tend to equate to, on a statistical stance, higher levels of income. And so understanding what higher levels of education do, how can we create a master schedule that puts students down there? And then looking at this, right? What influences or what can impact individuals to choose post-secondary education routes? Something we all want students to do. And this is data that we have, obviously, because we're College Board and we have all this information from AP. And this is from millions of students. So what you can see here in both the blue and the gray bars is individuals who score similarly, or who perform academically similarly. In the blue one are individuals who have taken an AP course, and the gray ones are individuals who have not taken an AP course. Again, similarly performing academically students. You can see there with individuals who scored a 5 on an AP course. So the blue bar are people who took an AP course, and the gray are people who have not. But they're 86% likelihood of attending a four-year institution. With those same students who, again, perform similarly academically, are 77% chance of going to a four-year institution. And on. You can see that with 4, with 3, that individuals who are exposed to college and career coursework are more likely to attend a four-year institution. And one thing that we really like to point out on the next slide is that a lot of times when we think about AP courses, when we think about college and career coursework, we think about that college credit, which is great. That's a huge, immense benefit for sure. It's something that we really lean into also. But what we always like to point out is that just the exposure sets them on this path. So when we're creating a master schedule and we're thinking about college and career coursework, sometimes I feel like individuals think about a certain sect of students when really it should be all students, because we have this data here, again, over 1 million different students and experiences that we can share about what happens when individuals get that 1 and 2. And typically, as we all know, 1s and 2s may not equate to college credit and may not be seen as highly as a 3, 4, or 5, but there's still so much difference that is made. Looking over here on the left-hand side with the gray bars, you can see that individuals who score a 1 and 2 are more likely to move on and take another college and career course, or an AP course. And they're also more likely to do better. So again, when you're creating this master schedule, you're creating these opportunities, think about this as a signpost. You either have them take this one or their first college and career coursework, and then they're more likely to go on again, right? They're not down this path, and they're more likely to be successful. So on the next slide too, we talk about participation, and it's something else that we can see is that for not only just in high school, right? They take a course in 9th grade, let's say, a college and career coursework, an AP course, and then in 10th grade, they're taking another one. In 11th, they're building their skills, and in 12th, they're on their way, but also beyond. So it's not just in high school that we're positively impacting students, But you can see that the biggest change for individuals in terms of improving their college grades and improving their on-time degree completion, which is always huge, is 0 to 1 or 1 to 2, right? So it's great that individuals want to take 5, 7 courses, whatever it may be, but how are we introducing individuals to this advanced coursework, to coursework that prepares them? And the next slide, you can see really instills them with that self-belief. And that's huge. I think, as we all know, in our terms of interacting with individuals, these young adults who are just finding themselves, right? They're building their study skills, they're strengthening their ability to manage time effectively. But I think the biggest thing that we try to do is really believe in them and then have them believe in themselves. So on the next slide, we always ask the question, is AP really for every student, right? That's kind of a question that we all pose. And I think sometimes we tend to bucket students that maybe these students should be this way, these students should be that way. But if you think about it, right, all kids deserve a chance. All kids should feel prepared for those next steps, should be introduced to those next steps. So whether you're looking at the data like we have for over 1 million plus students, and again, I'm sure we can even do beyond that, multi-million students and have the same thing, or you're thinking about those anecdotal stories that you know of, we believe that when we create a master schedule, what we're really doing is opening doors and giving students a chance to walk through them. And what we're going to do now is think about what are some of those main barriers for creating or including advanced coursework or AP coursework within a master schedule. There's tons, right? There's so much more that goes into building a master schedule. Every building's a little bit different. Every building has its own nuances, but these are 3 main ones that we focused on. One is target courses. What are we going to offer? What is appropriate for our students? The next is that community buy-in. Now that we think about what is appropriate for our students, how do we get individuals to participate? And when I say individuals, I don't just mean our students, but our faculty, our community, everything. And then logistics, right? Like, where do we put them? When do we put them? Just thinking about time, thinking about space. And the first one that we're going to touch on is AP Potential and how that is a tool that can help you target courses.
Yeah, so as Dennis mentioned, AP Potential is a really great tool. We wanted to make sure we spent some time on. Would love to see in the chat here how many of you are familiar with AP Potential already, or if you've been using it successfully and have any tips from that you want to share with others. One of the most beneficial parts about webinars like this is connecting with one another, right? So as far as trying to figure out when you're building your master schedule, which courses to prioritize in which spots, right? AP Potential can really help give you data to maximize the time that you do have within those same constraints and figure out which courses your students or the majority of your students are really going to be successful in. So diving into AP a little bit, why are AP courses important? Well, Ben has touched on a lot of the research that we have. It's the College Board, but specifically in Michigan, I did want to make sure to share a few statistics that are from our own state here and really powerful in the narrative. We've seen a huge growth in AP course enrollment over the last, especially 2 years here in Michigan. And we've seen some of the biggest increases in enrollment from our Black and Latino students, and also our students who qualify for as low income. After this presentation is over, we'll be sharing this deck here with MASSP, and surely they'll be able to send it out. So you'll be able to click on some of these links, but I did want to bring your attention to the exam fee assistance website. It's all up to date for 2026. So if you're looking at what some of those out-of-pocket costs are, and what College Board can subsidize, and our great partnership with the Michigan Department of Education as well subsidizes a substantial part. It's all listed there on that link. So research shows that students who take AP courses are more likely than their peers to attend college. We discussed that. But 2 out of 3 AP students, no matter what course they take, actually do earn some college credit. So that's another really powerful piece. When you're in even 9th grade or 10th grade, and maybe you aren't really sure if college is your track, sometimes that deciding factor is realizing that you could be successful, right? And that's what AP Potential actually does, is gives you the research tool to do that. So AP Potential is the name of the tool, and it's found on your College Board Educator account. There's a link sort of at the very top called AP Potential. Now, when you get into the tool itself, you can really narrow down your target population of what you're trying to figure out. And these are just some screenshots here. So they're, obviously not live, but just to give you a little bit of a sense when you get into that tool, how to use it. So you can go in and you can search down by which test administration you're looking for. The data from AP Potential starts really at the PSAT 8-9. And what it effectively does is it sees how students perform on specific sections of that exam, and how that might indicate if they were to take a full course, a full AP course, their likelihood of achieving a specific score. And so once you kind of narrow down your parameters of what you're looking to find here and get into the tool, you can actually pull up a student pool by percentage here. So you can kind of see on the screen if you're interested, for example, in knowing what percentage of your students are likely to get a 3 or better in AP biology, for example, the tool will do that. And it'll show you specific numbers of students likely to achieve that score, but it'll also show you how many current students you have enrolled in that course. And so one of the things that this allows you to do is see, hey, it looks like we have, maybe, 100 students that are likely to be successful in our new AP Pre-Calc course that we're rolling out. We don't currently have a plan for Pre-Calc, but based on this data from AP Potential, we see that this could be a course that actually could significantly bolster our students' academic outcomes. This will really help you to prioritize and leverage. One thing that we do always encourage educators to not use AP Potential for is to discourage students to take AP, because of course it's not really what the tool is designed to do, and we've already seen that even students who achieve a 1 or a 2 are still significantly more likely than peers who don't take AP to go on and pursue a tertiary education. And then once you narrow down your student pool there, you'll get the expectancy table. And there's when you get into the tool itself, it's super advanced actually in the amount of logic that's behind it and where it sources the data from. So you can get pretty deep into that as well if you're curious where it's all coming from. But effectively, once you get through your student pool, it's super handy because it actually provides you letters, template letters that you can simply download. You can preload your school counselor's name right into the tool or whoever you want it to be. It automatically addresses it to the parent or guardian of, student's name. And you can then basically just bulk mail merge these out and be able to encourage families to consider an AP course, because a lot of times we know that those are huge advocates in a student's life. One thing I love about AP Potential is that it does also generate these letters in Spanish. And so that's really powerful to be able to deliver these letters in a student's potential home language.
Hey, Cassie, it looks like Dennis caught a question that was in the chat, but in the Q&A, people are just asking about access to this, like who has access to this. So maybe is it people with certain roles within the, I don't know if it's called the DAT anymore. I'm dating myself now here, but like who has access to that at the school, or if they haven't offered AP before, can people still figure out a way to access that? And I will say, as a side note, that letter is super helpful. I remember sending those out because it's a great way to have a conversation start, especially with maybe parents who aren't as involved or don't realize some of the post-secondary options. And if that was even on the radar for their kid to consider going to college, those are awesome. So hopefully people take advantage. But if you can follow up on the access piece of this real quick.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Ryan. And also too, on that note, within the website, actually the website, not the tool, but we have success spotlights where schools have shared really cool ideas of what they've done with this. They've hosted like assemblies or like family nights where everybody comes and we talk about AP. But yeah, back to your question, Matthew. So the AP Potential tool is located in the educator portal, and the access to that is set by either a district administrator or school administrator. So you'd probably want to check with maybe your principal. And then that access does reset every year. So it is something that you want to make sure that you get set up. Dennis, do you have more information on, if they are a school that doesn't currently have AP courses, if they can access that?
Yeah, they definitely should. And drop my email in there for anybody and any concern. Please feel free to reach out. But we're happy to work with you to ensure that you have that access. Sometimes, like Cassie mentioned, it's just a simple code that you need to receive access. But we're happy to work with you and highlight and walk through this tool with you.
Awesome. So over to our panelists here. Curious, I know in the past you have used the AP Potential tool. Can you share a little bit about your experience or any tips that you've had about what worked well?
Sure. So we used the AP Potential letters back in like 2007, 8.
In the earlier years where we were really trying to shift that mindset
Yep.
of those kids that were, again, not challenging themselves to that level for a variety of reasons, and the letter really helped launch that.
Yeah, so what we did was we kind of worked with the prediction threshold from the scores using the PSAT 9. And with that, we were able to determine the kids, and the letters that was our tool. We sent them out en masse, just like you were saying. We were able to do it really quite easily. And it prompted a lot of questions and interest from families, from parents, from students. I think, you guys were talking about like it kind of bolstered students, they were feeling great about themselves. They're like, oh, I never thought I was an AP student. And this letter is telling me that I really could be. So that was extremely helpful. And once we started getting more interest, then again, we were able to build that into our master schedule as the demand for APs increased.
And one
Awesome.
thing, sorry, Cassie, to interrupt, but one thing, Principal Ronconi, just what you just mentioned, like shift that mindset. We just got a question about they don't have any AP courses right now. So I think this would be really helpful to hear your perspective of what that journey looked like and shifting that mindset. One, what were some of your motivations? And then can you also talk about some of those barriers to shift that mindset?
Sure. The previous principal here, again, just giving a little bit more on that journey or timeline. I was an assistant principal in the building at the time that we were really focusing hard on the AP potential letter. Mark Dajak was our principal at the time, and he really did a great job of communicating that in our newsletters, our weekly e-blast, at parent meetings, at our welcome nights for our incoming freshmen. It was really just putting that that out there as an opportunity, then again also targeting with the letter. And so it really just took that shift in exposing it, putting it out there versus this kind of hidden opportunity for only some kids. As a former AP US history teacher myself in a previous district before I came over to Troy, I remember some of those conversations where when we weren't using that AP potential letter, like again, more of that gatekeeper, and really leaving it up to individual teachers from the prior year to make those recommendations. Let the data make that decision, and that data can really do that. And you also, as a teacher, know sometimes maybe the data is not quite there yet, but you see that growth and that an inspired kid that really wants it. That's something I think you should really encourage too. Even again, the kid that might not get the highest score or the score that's going to get them credit in the course, there's so much they can gain from these courses. So we've seen it. We really feel like the universities that come here to have our kids attend their colleges have really identified this at the highest level. Michigan State, for instance, that really we have a really high acceptance rate at both those universities. I think it's all related to our College Board work and our AP success.
And I think it's important too to acknowledge that our district philosophy really, so at the district level, supports this very much. So we want to make AP classes available to all students. That is something that we really promote, like Ramo said, and that's through communications. I mean, even at board meetings or through our district-wide letters, we want students to have access. So it is us as a school, but also district-wide.
That's wonderful. Yeah, I love that. Like you mentioned, talking about those gatekeepers, right? Like understanding that you guys like I mentioned, if anybody's familiar with Troy School District, you guys do a wonderful job of creating these opportunities for all students. And I think that's great, right? Because it benefits not just a small sect of individuals who are selected by a small group of adults. It's allowing all the students to go through all the doors if they wish and if they choose. So that's great. Wonderful. Cassie, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's actually a perfect segue. So the next part we're going to talk about is creating that community of advocates. And I did see another question come in the Q&A about that from Melanie. So we are actually going to talk about that next. There's another question in the Q&A from Kathy. Dennis, if you could take a look at that one as well while we're moving forward here. Okay, so once you've kind of figured out these are some courses that we would like to offer, we know what we want to have. How do we get buy-in? How do we get people on board? The main thing, or the first thing, of course, as you know, is your teachers, and I know that's Melanie's question as well. You really want your teachers to be invested, of course, because they are the ones that are carrying this mission forward, and your teachers can also be intimidated by AP courses. We've certainly seen that. We know that being an AP teacher can sometimes feel isolating, especially if you're the only AP teacher in a school. And so in addition to creating that community of advocates within your school and within your district, the College Board does do a lot to help create and support professional learning communities, especially through our AP Summer Institutes and other training opportunities that we do provide so that they feel confident when they're in the classroom. But curious here too from our panelists, when you have explored adding new courses, especially through AP, what strategies have you used to really make sure that you're finding the right fit teachers and those teachers who are feeling part of that choice and in adopting that course?
I mean, I could start, and again, going back to when I was tapped on the shoulder many, many years ago as a teacher, it's about knowing your staff. And it's also that growth mindset for your teachers, just like you do for your kids, is making sure that they know that you believe in them really goes a long way. Working with, the department heads, working with whoever their evaluators to know when a teacher is ready to make that step. Because again, sometimes they might not even realize it yet that they're ready. And building that confidence, again, providing those resources, the time, not only the time to get up to speed and go to the institutes, but the time to mentally process this change. So you don't want to spring this on a teacher in a very short period of time. That would definitely not set them up for success. So building it over time, that transition, having those mentor teachers that are teaching AP, even if it's not the exact identical course, but helping them understand it before they take that role on. So really planning far in advance with all this work, especially in that identifying teachers and making sure that they feel part of a team and they're going to be supported.
Yeah, I think the part about mentoring, we are fortunate to have teachers who are very established in teaching AP courses, even way back when. And so helping younger teachers who we do believe would be excellent AP teachers, helping to ease their anxiety about teaching a class at that level. And so the partnership with teachers and mentoring is really fantastic. And then the teachers that, feel like they're ready when they go on to do the work with the AP Institute to learn the curriculum. I think that really does provide the foundation that they need when they come back. They're like, okay, I'm ready to do this. So it's the resources and the preparedness. Yeah.
And then, of course, coming back from especially those summer institutes too, they've now met peers and colleagues that, that networking, it's just like a conference. It's so valuable, right?
Yes, there's a very rare, the AP network is very robust. And so teachers can be communicating with other teachers that are teaching that curriculum across the United States.
I'm still communicating with a colleague I met at a summer institute more than 22 years ago. So again, there's a partnership there that goes on for a very long period of time.
I think, Cassie, too, in my experience, just a real honest conversation about if kids want to get post-secondary opportunities, they can do it through dual enrollment, some other avenues, but that's not being taught by our own staff at the building. So even just at a really small level of looking at staffing,
Mhm.
We want our teachers teaching our students who know our students best, right, in the building. And so that's where AP is the best fit for that approach. Because kids are going to want to go take the courses that they want to take and earn those opportunities. And you can use the argument, we'd rather they do that with our own teachers in our own buildings.
I would agree with that 100%.
Yeah, certainly. And I think there's we've also seen instances where you have a really, really seasoned educator, and maybe having a new challenge is actually a way to, you know, find new reward in being a teacher and just a different experience. So there's also that angle as well. Perfect. Thank you all for your input. You know, beyond teachers, of course, we also need to think about our counselors, our school counselors. We know how tough of a job that is, and so many things are that you all are balancing as counselors, especially sort of being on that front line. So, how do you ensure that you instill your counselors as advocates too, and where they really feel invested in you know, the mission of what this will do for the school, and not it just being like yet another task on the to-do list, right? So actually this one, I'd like to start with our panelists first here.
Well, Jesse is our definitely counseling expert, which again, I think that lens is so important because again, that piece, it's critical to have our counselors on board with the work and the message. And they know their kids at that level, again, not just that academic level, that social emotional level, to know, because both those things have to come together too for a kid to have that confidence to take on the class. So
Yeah.
I'll really let Jesse take this one.
Yeah, counselors are at Troy High are very, very familiar with AP coursework. I was the AP coordinator for our exams for 15 years, and we all work together as a team. We are all very consistent in our messaging to our students. We really focus on promoting the classes that we want to make sure that they have interest in the AP classes. Sometimes we do have students that are like, oh, I want to take an AP class. Which one should I take? And we really look at it from where's your passion, and what experiences have you had that might lead you to invest in this AP class. And we also look a lot at balancing classes, and you know, the rigor that they might be selecting. But students, I think, again, because of the culture that we have developed over the last, you know, really like 15 years, are very aware of the opportunities that they have in terms of AP courses. You know, they're talking with their peers and with other teachers. And so it's an ongoing conversation, particularly around scheduling time with our counselors and our students and our teachers about, you know, the right fit. Also, as we add new AP courses to our selection, we make sure that counselors Oh my gosh, we've been unmuted.
It was just for the last 5 seconds. You're good.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was like, oh, we've been going on and on. But as we add AP courses to the options that are available to students, we make sure that counselors are well informed about, you know, what pathways those APs might create for students. And that's a really important aspect as well. For example, we're adding AP Business to our repertoire for next year. And so counselors really had to dive into understanding the pathways for CTE in business, so that students have the most opportunities and when it's most appropriate to take AP Business opposed to other electives first, or you know, what might be the best path for them. So it's critical that counselors have a lot of knowledge about the actual courses so that they can provide that information accurately to our students, and then helping them kind of develop the pathways that they're interested in following.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. The key really is those two things that I heard you say, keeping them informed, but also getting them involved, helping, inviting them to be part of the selection in the process rather than just, kind of springing on them a decision, right? And families is very similar strategy as well. So what we see at the College Board is there's still just such an information gap between what the student gets from school and what makes it home to the student's house, and then what the family is able to understand of what the student can bring home from school, right? So a lot of families may not know about the benefits of AP. They may not know what AP is, especially if we're working with first generation students. And so this is a really important part of the process of building your master schedule, is making sure that your families understand what the opportunities are that are available to their students. Because a lot of times what we see is that you can have the most excited and engaged student in the classroom, and then when they go home and they sit down at the dinner table and they try to share that excitement, and parents' faces are kind of met with a blank stare, that enthusiasm and excitement can really wane pretty quickly. So trying to get families involved as well, actively engaging and promoting, as I mentioned earlier, we have a wealth of resources in our Spotlight on Success section of our website, which there's so much in there. And actually, there are case studies from Michigan that I would also encourage you all to check out. But really cool ideas from sort of like pseudo sports signing day style things, using AP Potential, specific banners and posters hanging around the school to really celebrate students, achievements, and then bringing in family for family nights and information sessions. The goal is really to clearly map out the benefits to their students, for their students, connecting with college campuses, transfer tables, these types of things. So making sure that you're having families involved is really important. And in the chat too, I know many of you, especially those at smaller districts, already have fantastic strategies for this. So if anyone wants to share any in the chat for others, we would welcome that. And then finally, we want to move on to the students, right? Because this is, making sure that they are really excited too. With our students, it's really effective to have them be part of the leadership of these changes and in your school schedules, specifically in AP. So we've seen schools do really successful ambassador programs where students are, really encouraging their peers to consider a course that maybe they weren't, or thinking they wouldn't be successful in. We have had schools do like 2-day summer camps, or like sort of boot camps the year prior to an AP course. But to our panelists here, you all have built a very successful AP program. I know you've mentioned it was an investment in time and strategy, but can you walk us kind of through any of these groups, or how you've worked with them well to build them as advocates in your program?
We, our like I was saying earlier, our school, because we have already established that robust AP culture, our kids really, through speaking with each other, kind of they promote the AP courses. And again, with the counselors being highly involved in developing the students' schedules and helping them, figure out pathways that they would like to take. That's also a really critical part of getting the word out. We also really do encourage our students, when they're curious about a class, we really encourage our students to speak with the teacher that actually teaches that AP class. And our teachers are wonderful about it. They are able to really delve into details that counselors may not be aware of, that help a student determine, is this going to be an appropriate fit for me? So we kind of use all of those different opportunities and resources.
And I think once you get to that critical place where you've established it in your building, the great thing is those former students, the older siblings of your current students, really, when they go on to the university and they take these courses, college level courses, and they feel not only prepared but that the courses in some cases their freshman year in college are easier. or then their experiences in the high school, like that really promotes again like what the benefit is and how the time and effort they put in now is going to pay huge dividends later. So when the kids themselves are coming back and saying that not only to their little brothers and sisters, but to their neighbors, to their friends, the community has really then built that up. The teachers, I think, again, do a really good job of creating that environment where it's a challenging environment, but it's also very fun. I hear about our teachers that do these really fun reviews and test prep prior to the exam, and kids get really excited about it. It's competitive. Again, when you use the analogy about a signing day, I look at the competitive energy that teachers create just prior and those weeks leading into the test. That is something that is really exciting to watch, and kids really get into that.
Yeah.
So again, it's a little bit of all of those things and more again, but getting to a certain point where you establish it, then it starts to really build a bit of a life of its own. Because most of our parents, when you talked about the parent piece, they didn't have an experience or opportunity to take APs at the level that their children are, but they see the value. They understand the opportunities that it opens up for their children later on. So
yeah, and I mean, there are financial incentives as well. As a parent of a child who's now in college, having him take AP courses in high school helped us out because he didn't have to take classes in college that he otherwise would have had to take because of the score that he received on his AP exam. So that's an also fantastic benefit.
Yeah, I mean, we see kids that graduate from these major universities in 3 years, sometimes with those, or double majoring where they couldn't have done that without these credits. So again, the benefits, don't keep them secret. Make sure you share the news with your community, and it will start to build and take on a life of its own. And so that initial lift is a little bit heavy, but it gets easier as your kids are succeeding.
Sure, and like you mentioned, it's really a pride point, right? It really creates pride in your school and in your district for parents, students, teachers, and administrators.
Yep, absolutely.
And one thing that you mentioned, Principal Ronconi, I think I really enjoyed is, like you said, individuals who are exposed to college and career coursework in high school it makes that transition a lot easier. At every university throughout the United States, there's these bridge type courses. I'm sure we've all heard of these type of programs where individuals or universities are looking at individual students and welcoming them, but typically they come before the summer, right? And they get prepared, they get exposed to what university life is, what university curriculum is like, and it sets them up for success in that freshman fall semester. That's kind of always what I think about AP courses, right? Obviously, it goes a little bit beyond that, but it really prepares those students. And like you mentioned too, like it makes it easier for them. A lot of students will say that, right? I took this course, this really supportive course for a year in my high school, and it really prepared me. And then my freshman year, those courses were a lot easier, right? So you're setting your students up for success. And that's kind of what we think about. Like you guys mentioned, it's great to have, save money. It's great to have those college credits, but thinking long term, right? Like how can we help those students be successful, not just in high school, but in college and then beyond too, right? We're putting them on a path. And I think that's really great. We already kind of talked. Oops, sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, you're just building on that one more. I just feel it's so important to say when you talk about that retention rate in college, like our goal is obviously to graduate our children here at the high school, but we want to see them succeed in life. And I really do feel like the AP opportunities that they have here and those college graduation rates that our kids have is a huge thing that we're really proud of, because again, we want to see that long-term success, not just them getting into a college or a university, because unfortunately, those universities know that they get a number of kids that go in the first year, and it's really challenging, and kids have to take a step back. And our goal, and I feel like this process allows our kids to see that next journey all the way through. So I'm excited about what those long-term success stories look like. And I really do root a lot of that in, and again, AP and our amazing teachers and our really hardworking students and our families that support all the work.
I love that perspective that you're taking, right? Like it's not about the immediate test scores that happen in 2026, right? It's not about something that maybe affect the students while they're in high school, but you're looking long distance. And that's honestly, that's one of the reasons that we chose this district for our kids to grow up in. I have two young kids for that perspective. I love that. Like you're planning for them now to give them the skills to help them in their future. And then just to keep on moving, like, we kind of talked about two different barriers that may impede districts to supporting or having these type of courseworks and creating the environment that you guys create at Troy school districts. We talked about what courses that we have, how do we identify those students? We talked about how to build up a community. And then everybody on this call, if you have ever built a master schedule, you understand that it really comes down to the nuts and bolts, right? It comes down to that time and space. There's so many barriers. There's so many issues that can crop up to serve as an impediment to including these courses, to including putting your students on this type of track. And so when you think about it, the first one I want to do is think about how do we solve those? What are some exercises? What are some options? What are some solutions for this? And the first one is on the next slide when we talk about if you're thinking about, I would love to put our students on this track, right? I would love to give them this exposure that prepares them for their future, but I have a full schedule, right? Like last year was super packed and it was such a bear to create last year's schedule. How do we add these courses, right? I think Matthew mentioned that they have no AP courses, but they already have a full schedule, right? So how do they incorporate some of these? And these are some solutions and some thoughts. The one would just be to elevate existing courses, right? Some courses that you offer are similar to the courses that you can incorporate that are AP courses. The one course that I think of off the top of my head is Precalculus. Almost every high school within the state of Michigan and the country even offer a pre-calculus type course, right? For us, we try to tell people AP pre-calculus is equivalent to your high school pre-calculus. Like they talk about functions and the relationships of functions, but if you look at the content, if you look at what your teachers are doing currently in their pre-calculus class, and then look at what the course framework is for AP pre-calculus, and then even go beyond and look at what college pre-calculus is, it's all pretty similar. And so that's something that you can do is just put an AP in front of your pre-calculus class. And it opens so many doors when we think about that. That bottom row you can see there, Algebra 1, Geometry, Algebra 2, Pre-calculus, that tends to be the most common path for students throughout the country in terms of what their math trajectory may be. That first row, right, is for a little bit more advanced students, and that's perfectly fine. But if I just think about this, again, how we're impacting students' future, AP Pre-calculus, if a school adopts that, that may be the only opportunity for an individual to take college-level math. And as we all know, college level math is one of the biggest barriers to completion, right? To degree completion. And so how do we help students overcome that barrier in a more supportive, in a more comfortable environment? And that is AP Pre-calculus. Another strategy that individuals can use or districts can use is course pairing, right? Sometimes that issue is that you can't find an AP teacher or you have AP teachers who are uncomfortable or maybe a new teacher. And so one strategy that other districts have used is course pairing. And what course pairing does is it allows two AP courses to be run almost as one. So it gives another teacher, maybe that new teacher who's a little bit hesitant, to work with another course or with another faculty member and collaborate with them so they don't feel as alone in their journey of becoming an AP teachers, because again, sometimes we all know it's hard to find people to teach these courses. And one example of that is pairing AP African American Studies on that next slide, and then U.S. History, right? Thinking about that, thinking about how do we welcome with AP African American Studies, how do we welcome more people into college and career coursework? We all know, just looking at the stats, looking at the data, what advanced coursework looks like in terms of the individuals who take those courses. So how do we make more people feel welcome? How do we make individuals from underserved communities feel like they belong here? And having a course like this and finding a teacher, again, AP African American Studies, it might be harder to find individuals who can take the lead in that course or who are interested in taking the lead. So how do we help tie them in with another course? But with African American Studies, like it's our first minority majority minority course in terms of individuals who are enrolled in that course come from minority backgrounds. And also you can see that 84% of students indicated that they're more likely to take another AP course. So we're introducing individuals into AP coursework who haven't been there. And then again, just like that last data showed, this course puts them on a trajectory to head down that path, right? You served as a new signpost. Another strategy is thinking about, a lot of districts, because of the connotation that AP has, they think, oh, it's only for upperclassmen. It's only for 11th graders and 12th graders. Students in 9th and 10th won't be prepared for it, but they are. Like, we design courses, we've seen students be successful in AP courses who are freshmen or who are sophomore. And one example, one solution could be taking your English 10 course, right? Every student has to take English 10 and enhancing it and making it AP seminar for English 10, right? So now your 10th graders are being exposed to this course. You can also do it for 11th, but when we're talking about this and elevating or extending the period of time or the years that individuals can be exposed to college and career coursework, English 10 works. And then you can see in the next slide what it does, AP seminar for English 10, is it sets students up for success. As you click through the slide, you can see that 85%, which is higher than the national average for all of our other courses, 85% of sophomores scored a 3 or better. Again, ones and twos, tons of benefits for sure. Ones and twos are still more likely to take another college and career coursework, and they're also more likely to do better. But 85% are getting that 3. And what does that do for these individuals, these sophomores, right? What does that do in terms of their confidence? What does that do in terms of their belief? And then also, as you can see on that slide, what does it do for them in 11th and 12th grade? We have data that shows that it improves their performance in additional AP courses, and then it also improves their GPA in college and their retention throughout college, which is something that Principal Ronconi talked about in terms of we're building a future, not just for them now in the immediate year, but also beyond the K through 12 walls. And then the next thing that we can talk about in terms of strategies to expose more students to college and career coursework is, a lot of times you think about AP, you think about, the gen eds, right? The basic courses, but we have these new courses that expand into that career space. And so the first one I want to touch on, and something that Assistant Principal Elgire, I don't know if you're familiar or you're comfortable with that name yet, but talked about, and you guys are adding the AP Business with Personal Finance, right? That's a new course that we have, and it extends into that CTE space. And the other course is AP Cybersecurity that we have. That again extends into that space. So it's not just these traditional courses, math, science, English, but how do we offer these opportunities, open these doors for these students who move towards a different area, right? More towards that CTE area. A lot of times districts think about students go down the career path or they go down the academic path. These courses that we're offering now kind of muddle that a little bit, but muddle it in a good way in terms of that these students can get benefits in both those areas. And I know we're coming up on time, but I definitely wanted to ask.
Actually, Dennis, we have a question perfect for our panelists here in the chat. We can make sure we get this in here. So Douglas is asking, how can we better advocate for AP courses where students might earn college credit when we're also competing with dual enrollment classes, community college classes, and students are earning credit with less time and effort? So from your vantage, how do we advocate for AP when we know that students have, other avenues that they might want to perceive as the easier route?
Well, I think that's part of the culture that we have built. We do not have a large dual enrollment. We don't send a lot of kids out to different schools for dual enrollment. We do have one dual enrollment class that is housed at Troy High School. We have an adjunct professor who is one of our teachers who also teaches at that college, Lawrence Tech, Calculus 3 and Linear Algebra course. But outside of that, it's not very frequent that our students use the dual enrollment opportunity. I think because we have instilled in our students that they are able to have the robust curriculum through AP in their own building with their teachers, that is a huge, I think that frankly, that parents like that better. They like their kids to be in the school building. And so that's not something that we really have had to contend with. But I think that is the result of having really worked on developing the culture that promotes the AP coursework within the building.
And then the success that
Our kids have, yeah.
that they've had, we can really point back to, we know this will be a successful path for you, and our teachers who really care about their kids at the deepest level, and our counselors encouraging and promoting that pathway, I think is the key.
Yeah.
So when we really got started, people weren't talking about dual enrollment,
Yeah.
and so there was an advantage there, where now maybe there would be a more competitive environment if you were just getting started in the work.
Yeah, and the college application process too, from our experience working with schools, schools really do like to see that students are invested in taking the most rigorous curriculum that's available to them, and that's available to them in school. And so I think that also is something that our students are very aware of. Our counselors do a really good job of making them aware that, like, those AP on your transcript, having those AP courses is really desirable, especially for the highly competitive, Ivy type schools that our kids are competing to get into.
And having those recruiters come in and say that, because sometimes they might think that, we're just saying it, but partnering with those universities, having those university recruiters talk to kids, talk to parents, and say that, then it just reinforces what we're saying. So
and frequently the schools that our kids are applying to may not even accept a dual enrolled course. They may not even give credit for that. So those are the conversations that our kids are having with our counselors that help them determine, which route they want to go. But again, I think the culture is already pretty established.
Yeah, those are really great points. And I'll add too that, from our perspective at the College Board, what we see is when students are, if the end goal is the same, which is, really getting some early college credit, right? Doing that within your school with your own teachers, students have so many more support resources within their own building and with people who've known them already, right? Than, doing a dual enrollment course or at a, like fifth year or whatever at a local community college. I mean, you really have to hope that college has student services and dean of students and, the academic support pieces that would be new and foreign to navigate for a younger student. So that's another thing to think about when you're trying to advocate within your school for AP courses. And with that, we're coming right up on time, but one last question for you here at Troy that just came in. Did you see an increase in your attendance with pushing AP courses?
we have really good attendance, and it is a huge motivator. AP courses are not something that a student can be very flippant about their attendance. So there's definitely that is another benefit of running an AP course. I mean, when you look at even just the weather outside right now, which I know many of you across the state are experiencing, our kids and our teachers get sometimes upset about snow days because they are so determined to do well and capture every day of learning in an AP course. So it's an interesting thing sometimes especially when you get into February and we have a snow day, or in March, and they're really in those final weeks of prep. They don't want a snow day. So yeah, I would say for sure attendance does improve when you have these courses running.
And I can speak again as a parent. My youngest son, who's in high school, it's very similar. He does not want to miss school because he doesn't want to miss his AP classes. He knows what will happen if he does. So it is definitely, it encourages students to be here for sure.
Well, thank you both for your perspective and for your time and sharing that with us today. Just want to quick point out here, Dennis and I have our contact information on the screen, and then there's a QR code you can get to for more information about AP. But any questions at all, as Dennis and I like to say, it is our job to help you. We are a free resource. This is what we're here for. Please connect with us. We'd be really happy to help talk through this in more detail with your specific districts.
Awesome. I know we dropped a link in for the upcoming February webinar on AP African American Studies. You can go to massp.com/events and see all the different webinars that we have coming up. So hopefully everybody is staying warm. Enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll see you at the next webinar coming up. I think we have some more scheduled next week. So Cassie, Dennis, everybody, thank you so much for your time today, and we will get a copy of the recording and slide deck out to you most likely tomorrow. Take care, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Good day.